Good evening, and back at it here at Kaufman Corner with you as always, the good Dr. Rany Jazayerli, one of the co-founders of Baseball Prospectus, one of the co-authors of Rob and Rany on the Royals. Rany on the Royals, he authored that. Writes for everybody, Grant Land. If you have a check, he's got a keyboard. It's not quite that. Not quite that simple. My name is Soren Petro from Sports Radio 810 WHB in Kansas City. You can check out my work 2 to 6 Central Time at 810whb.com. We also have our 810 app. You can check it out. And we've got a lot to get to today when it comes to your Kansas City Royals. Randy, we want to talk a little bit about the pitching. There's been some bright signs. They took 2 out of 3 from the Rays. Are you just giddy? It's all fixed, man.
Soren, it's a winning week. I mean, it was a 3-day week, but hey, take those victories where you can. They in fact have a winning record over their last 41 games, right? 21 and 20. And you just imagine if the season were played out in reverse and they had started the season 21 and 20 before collapsing. 21 and 20 doesn't sound like anything to write home about, but in a 12 playoff team era, they would have been like 2 games out of a playoff spot in like late May. Kids would be getting out of school. The fans would have been packing the ballpark, and the entire narrative of the season would be different. And instead, they're just playing out the string. And the big victory is that they moved out of last place today for the first time in a while. So, yay, Royals.
Yeah. So there is, listen, beggars can't be choosers. We'll take the progress wherever we can get it. We're going to talk a little bit about the first half for the Royals. What do we learn from that first half? Second half expectations, the Royals draft. We can put a bow on that. We, of course, were on last after the first night of the draft, but we now got the entire draft to look at. Trade deadline looming, and Asa Lacy continues to be really scary. Let's be honest. Let's call it what it is. Really scary. When it comes to what he's doing. But let's start with the pitching. When you see 12 punchies to Manoah, that's what he called them, punch-outs, during the All-Star game. You see 12 punchies from Brady Singer at career high. Bubic throws 7 innings, does it in 82 pitches. Is it all fixed, Rany? I just let's make it simple. Is it all fixed?
No, it's not all fixed. You know the rule of headlines, right? Which is anytime the headline is a question, the answer is always no. Is the pitching fixed? No, it's not fixed. Is Brady Singer a solution for the Royals rotation? Is Brady Singer going to be a part of the Royals' next playoff rotation? That question, I'm leaning towards yes. Certainly signs point in that direction. We talk about when analyzing players, one of the first things we learned from Bill James, and something that we pushed at Baseball Prospectus in the 90s, was the importance of putting into your evaluation the context, right? The ballpark effect, the league effect, all the effects. We don't have a stat for pitching coach effect, but if you strip out the pitching instruction effect on Brady Singer's line, you have to think that this guy is a burgeoning ace. I mean, what we saw from him yesterday with the career high 12 strikeouts, and the best start by a Royals pitcher probably all season. Had a no hitter into the 6th inning, lost it on a bunt. We can talk about that, and the fact that the bunt was put down by a player that had been a part of the Royals minor league system until about 6 minutes before the game. But Brady Singer, it was a great game, and he kind of puts the lie to this idea that you cannot thrive as a starting pitcher with just 2 pitches, because he is starting to throw that changeup more. I think he threw 10 or 11 of them in his start. He got at least 1 strikeout on the changeup, maybe a second one, but he's still by and large the sinker slider pitcher. But when you can locate those 2 pitches and tunnel them so well that the batter has no idea which one's coming, and they both move in opposite directions as well as they do, I have to give Brady Singer a ton of credit for doing what a lot of people outside the organization thought was not possible, which is be an above average major league starter without really a functional third pitch. And my God, if he can develop that changeup into even an average offering, he could be the best pitcher the Royals have developed since the days of Danny Duffy and Yordano Ventura at least.
Yeah, and that is, I mean, it is the changeup what we give the credit to? Just having that limited, just even, just having some semblance of it. Is that what it was? Or was this, no, this is how good pitch 1 and 2 is. And when he's on, this is the upside of what it can be.
I think it's primarily pitches 1 and 2 because I mean, his ERA is 3.82 this year, which is very good, but relative to the league, it's not any better than he was as a rookie. I mean, last year was the anomaly. His ERA was close to 5, but his FIP was completely fine at 4.04. He just gave up a lot of hits. His problem has just been batting average on balls in play, which has been higher than league average throughout his career. This year, it's about league average, and that has been all the difference. I think he's been this good kind of all along. He hasn't developed, which I think is, or he hasn't improved, I should say, which I think is another indictment of the organization's pitching development as a whole. But that changeup is making slow strides, very slow, but they're there. The big thing with him this year is simply his command. His walk rate has dropped. He was walking 3 to 3.5 walks per 9 innings his first 2 years in the majors. This year, his walks per 9 inning are down to 2.3. And with a strikeout rate of better than 1 inning and a walk rate of basically 1 walk every 4 innings on a team leading the majors in walks. The minor leaguers are leading the minor leagues in walks. Like Brady Singer is very much the anomaly there. It's him and Zach Greinke are the two guys who can actually throw strikes. That to me is, I think, the key for his success, and the reason why I think his floor is still as a number 3, number 4 starter. I think as long as he throws strikes, he's going to be at least serviceable in the rotation.
Wait, did you just say still his floor is still a number 3, number 4 starter?
Well, I mean, and I'm saying his downside, like even if he doesn't develop any further, even if his changeup,
you've lost your mind. At what point? So you're saying ace to 3 or 4 starter?
I would say number 4 starter if he is. I mean, obviously he gets hurt.
Yeah, but that's the floor. What the hell's the ceiling? Hall of Famer? 300?
No, but a good number 2 starter.
Okay.
I mean, again, I'm putting and when I've gotten to the point now where when I look at any pitcher, I mean, I look at even Jackson Kowar in his double-digit ERA. There's almost no one in this organization that I am going to say this guy is a hopeless case until and unless I see that pitcher work with a pitching instruction that's better than what the Royals are offering now. I mean, when one guy sucks, the guy sucks. When every guy sucks, maybe it's the guys who don't suck. And especially when these guys were highly regarded in the draft, highly regarded in the minor leagues, I just think that the Royals are doing all of their pitchers a disservice, and all of them have another notch or two that they are capable of if they can get some truly elite pitching instruction. And that's why I'm grading Brady Singer on a curve.
By the way, if you're catching us via the podcast, we stream live Sunday nights at 10 p.m. Next week should be interesting too, by the way, because I'm going to do it while on vacation. So we'll see how that how that ends up working. But 10 p.m. on Sundays. And of course, you can be part of the chat room. We've already put up some of the comments already here. If you're on Facebook, Twitch, or YouTube, you can be part of the comments that are going on here in the chat room as we bring the broadcast to you. And we're going to address some of the issues that are there. I would love it if you hit a subscribe. Like, love, all those things help us a lot. Smash those buttons. It doesn't cost anything, but it helps us out tremendously. So we'd appreciate it if you would do that, if you'd be so kind to do it. Brady Singer, for me, I will say 12 strikeouts is a godsend. That this is the first time it kind of perks me up. Oh, by the way, also, if you're in the chat room, I'm trying something different here technically. So if anybody, let me know if Rany's low. If he's low or high, or one of us is blowing somebody away, a little feedback on how it is, because I don't hear what you hear. So just sidebar as I'm trying something a little different tonight. So anybody want to help us out? But if everything sounds good, no worries. But 12 strikeouts, to me, that's what we've been waiting on, right? Like, it's a strikeout game. And I've said before that the Royals, I kind of theorized this week. It's like, do they just almost coach the weapons away from the players? Right? Do they have this mindset of, we want a big projectable 6'4", 6'5" guy. We want this perfect over-the-top delivery. Like, I wonder if the modern baseball is, because we talk about how the Rays, everybody's different, and the Astros give you a different look, and how they've all done that. Has what these teams have done to be better strikeout pitchers has said, listen, we're going to stop trying to give a guy a 20-year career, right? All we want is this year be wicked, be nasty. And if you've got something, even if we're like, well, that's a lot of strain on the elbow, we ain't paying you anyway, right? Like we'll diagnose the ones that have the perfect delivery and say, okay, we can invest in this guy. But the rest of them, we're going to turn them and burn them. We're going to use them and be done with them. And the Royals have been, fixated on, well, let's get your slot a little bit over here. Let's take some pressure off the shoulder. And they've taken away all the funk from all their guys because they really don't. And somebody we had a comment up there that Singer's 12K game, he was as nasty as they've seen from anybody since at least Duffy and Ventura in their primes. I mean, I hope that's not the case. I hope my theory is just that, a theory, and there's no merit to it. But do you see the kind of stuff that Brady Singer can go out and be that kind of weapon on a regular basis? That's what the changeup's for. The changeup is for when one of those top two pitches aren't working, right? Like he's going to need that. But do you see a guy who can actually go out and make that a regular occurrence of nine strikeouts per nine?
I think when both of his elite pitches, I shouldn't say elite, both of his two best pitches are being elite like they were in that start, then yes. But it's still rare to be a starting pitcher and get 12 punchies, as you put it, without at least 3 out pitches. You need to have, if you can only throw 2 pitches, even if they are elite, at some point batters are just going to guess right? If they got a 50-50 shot, the whole point of modern baseball is that pitcher stuff is as nasty as it's ever been. But because of that, hitters know you're not going to beat the guy by getting 3 or 4 or 5 singles in a row because you're not going to make enough contact for that to happen. You're better off selling out for power because if you guess wrong, okay, you strike out. You look foolish. You end up on Pitching Ninja's Twitter feed as the unfortunate batter who, with his sword because he swung at a pitch he shouldn't have. But if you guess right, ball goes over fence, you score a run, and that's the fastest way to make it happen. Right. So you really do need that third pitch. And the thing with Brady Singer is he's got 2 pitches, but he can use that fastball both on the inside and on the outside. Like it is so much about command. And I think Brady Singer, the thing that makes him special, at least by Royal standards right now, is he does have that command to both sides of the plate. Whereas someone like Kris Bubic, who even today, 7 innings, 2 runs, he gutted out a very good start from a result standpoint, and that's great. But I think he had 3 walks and 4 strikeouts. Like, I'm sorry, but in 2022, that isn't going to get it done. That you are not going to be a successful pitcher on a long-term basis, giving up 3 walks and striking out 4 guys, and also giving up a home run in 7 innings. Brady Singer's results are legitimate because he is getting the strikeouts without sacrificing in other areas. But again, I think that what he has done is legit with 2 pitches. So if he develops even a hint of a third pitch, and you're seeing baby steps here, 2 steps forward, 1 step back with that changeup. Yesterday was, I don't know if it was a career high in changeups thrown, but he hasn't hit double digits in changeups thrown very often in his career. And I want to see him continue that. I mean, there's nothing, you're not playing for anything anyway this year. Let him continue to work on that changeup. If he has hiccups, that's fine. Because if he can find a grip on that changeup, and during the broadcast, Jeff Montgomery was talking about how he had changed the grip. I believe it was his changeup he was talking about to get more movement on it. Oh, and guess where that happened? During his brief demotion to Omaha this season. Like, even the Royals' successes are evidence in the case against the pitching coach who shall not be named.
Well, and I'll say this: we had a question. Irish Mac said, "Any data on Singer's line since returning from Omaha?" Yeah, I can give you that since he went down for very briefly. Went down after an appearance on April 26th, returned on May 17th. At least that was the first time he pitched. Since then, he has gone 4-3 with the Royals, going 7-5 in his 12 starts. He's gone 4-3, thrown 72 innings, 67 hits, walked 19, struck out 75. That's good for a 3.63 ERA. Fielding independent pitching, which scores like an ERA, but takes out all the noise of defense, 3.76. So he's getting a pretty true return off what's been expected. Opponent's batting average has been 250, 306 on base, 407 slug for 713 OPS. Batting average on balls in play, 310. So again, he's getting a pretty true return off what he's done. This isn't smoke and mirrors like, oh my God, the batting average on balls in play is 205. This is really just people are hitting balls right at people. This seems to be a pretty true return on what he's done. So I mean, I think, this is who he is, and I think he's more, because let's be honest, like how much more upside is there? I mean, the guy. This is I think the little secret for people that they may not realize is Brady Singer will be 26 in 11 days.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I mean, like we're not talking about, he's not 22. We're talking about a guy that, is going to be, just because they sent him down, come up just short of 3 full years of service time. But, we're talking about a guy that you're supposed to be good now. This is supposed to be the prime of your career. So I don't know how much more upside there can be to this. And this to me looks more 3-ish, right? On a championship club, 3-ish.
Yeah, I mean, he's a 3 right now. I think he can be a 2, and I think you may be overstating the degree to which being 26 years old in 11 days is limits his upside, because especially with the guys here, we know what the issue is, the lack of a third pitch. Like there's a specific weakness here, but that every weakness is an opportunity, and there's a specific thing, one thing that if he can fix, it suddenly. It's unusual to have a guy who's already a league average player at any position, pitcher, hitter, whatever, where if they can just do one new thing, they still have significant upside. And essentially for pitchers, 26 in modern baseball is not too old for an old dog to learn new tricks. It's not too old for a guy to peak. I mean, look at a good example, Corey Kluber, right?
Right.
Corey Kluber, who was kind of a command and control guy coming up, whose stuff got a little bit better, but he didn't even make it to the majors. His rookie season, he was 26, and then he had an ERA of over 5. As a 27-year-old, he had a 3.85 ERA and was in the then Indian, now Guardians rotation the whole season. He didn't break out until he was 28, and then he won a Cy Young Award and was basically probably the best pitcher in the American League over the 5 years after that. But prior to age 27, you never would have guessed Corey Kluber would have been in the top 20 pitchers in the American League over the next 5 years. So I'm not too concerned about that. I think the interesting question here is, do the Royals make a long-term commitment to Brady Singer now? We haven't really talked about signing guys to long-term contracts. There haven't been a lot of those guys to talk about. We briefly discussed Bobby Witt Jr. because of just, the rumor on the street that he was amenable to a deal. And obviously he should be priority number 1. But Brady Singer, will be at the end of the season, will have 3 years of service time. Now, the question is, he spent 2.5 weeks, I think, in the minor leagues this season. He also spent 4 days where he doesn't get service time because he didn't go to Toronto. So it is possible he will miss enough service time to qualify for a full year, which would, in fact, delay his free agency by a year.
Oh, he's already missed it. It's 170, right? Or 171, 172.
It is, but there is, and I don't know the new CBA well enough to know, but I believe, at least in the old CBA, there was a stipulation where if you were demoted to the minor leagues, optioned to the minor leagues, but returned within 20 days, that you received service time for the full 20 days that you were gone. And Brady Singer was in the minor leagues 18 or 19 days, if I recall. This is one of those areas where I, really, without having a CBA expert on call, I cannot say for sure. But if he gets credit for those 18 or 19 days that he was in Omaha, the 4 days he was on the restricted list won't matter. He will get a full year. The Royals, put it this way, the Royals know, Brady Singer knows, we don't know, but he will be a free agent. He has at least 3 years of club control after this season, possibly 4. If it's 3, do you consider giving him a 4-year contract guaranteed, but getting 1 or 2 option years on that?
What kind of numbers are you throwing at Brady Singer?
I mean, so he'll be arbitration eligible for the first time next season, right? So the days of 6-figure contracts for him are over. But
he'd qualify as a Super 2.
Yeah, Super 2 either way. He's going to be either way. He's going to be ARB eligible. But the first year for a guy, you look at his performance over the previous 2 years. mean, this is a guy, I'm guessing $2 to $3 million in that first year. He's not going to get a huge jump, but ordinarily that would be, if it's 2 to 3 in the first year of arbitration, it might be 5 to 7 in the second year. It might be closer to 10 million in the third. But in the, as a free agent, is he going to get 10 million a year as he is today? I think that's who he is. The only reason to do it is if you actually think he can be a better pitcher than he is now, because if he moves one echelon up on the pecking order, becomes a legit number 2, he's a $15 million a year guy, easy. Do you give him 4 years, $24 to $28 million? I think that's reasonable. And then you get some, maybe 2 options at like $10 to $12 million a year. That sets him up for lifetime wealth, but gives the Royals a guy for 5 or 6 years, and they never have to pay more than $10 to $12 million. I think there is a number there. I think there's like terms of an arrangement that would be mutually agreeable.
I think it's got to be higher than that if you're a Singer and you have any confidence in yourself. And he is, based on my experience with him, not lacking of confidence. I'm not saying he's a jerk, but he's not lacking of confidence.
That's part of why he's successful. I think he pitches with confidence,
particularly. And this is the mistake. And I'll highlight what Cam said here. He said, if that is the case, why did the Royals just keep him down 4 days longer? Exactly. And I'll tell you why. Well, and I'll tell you why they don't is because, and if they got him up there just in time to make sure, well, we want you to work on this, but look, we're still getting you up there because they think it's going to pay him dividends. It hasn't paid him dividends once. And I think they look like fools, frankly, to go back to our conversation that we had about 10 guys not going to Toronto, 3 members of the coaching staff not going, Eric Hosmer not signing with the Royals. When has it ever paid off? All this, I'm glad they do it. I'm glad they paid their minor leaguers during the pandemic because I think it's the right thing to do. And billionaire owners should do the right thing with employees making sub-minimum wage, according to the lawsuits that are going on with minor leaguers. Mm-hmm. They didn't fire any of their fire any employees or take any pay cuts during the pandemic for all the employees that went home. And many of them basically didn't work because the product wasn't being made. That is great. And I love that of the Royals organization. Right. And it will always be very, very, something that'll be very, that I'll never forget about this ownership that they did. And I won't forget it about Dayton Moore in the front office that they did it with the minor leaguers, but they keep doing this. And where is the return? Right. And I'm going to say, you mentioned Cal Eldred. Cal Eldred will not be back. I don't think there's any way he will be back. I know for a fact that they were upset. Dayton Moore made it very clear he was upset when I brought him on the show about the 10 players that weren't going to be there. He said he was frustrated. I'm going to tell you from talking to people off the air, they're really pissed. And I'll be shocked if Whit Merrifield's on this ball club come August 3rd. I'll be stunned if Cal Eldred is still on manning the pitching. That decision should already be made, right? Like those are done deals. Whatever the best we can get for Whit Merrifield, you're moving on. And I think those things have to happen. And so to Cam's point, I mean, why not keep him down? Yeah, because now if you're only 3 years away, you might as well play the arbitration game and get to the free agency that much quicker. I know I maybe obsess too much about the age thing, but I mean, think about it. 27, 28, 29. He's going to be 29 when he gets to free agency. You think this guy's wanting to let you buy 30 and 31? If I'm his agent, I'm like, listen, if you'd hit the big leagues at 22, let's talk about that. We need to get you to free agency. We don't need to be at 29. We don't need you out there at 31. So I think your numbers are way low on what it would take to get him to sign. I think
it might take more. I'm spitballing here. Maybe it's 30, 32 million. I still think that's something the Royals should consider. But I also think,
just before we move off of that, mm-hmm. if they try and they don't get him signed because he says no, and there's nothing wrong with saying no, right, and betting on yourself. See Aaron Judge, right? We're watching it in Kansas City, Orlando Brown. There's nothing wrong with doing that, but it will again be, can we agree, evidence of stop doing things based upon being swell guys at the cost of what is the best thing for the business of baseball because you're not getting rewarded for it. Can we agree on that?
Yes, of course. I if the Royals make decisions because it is the right thing to do from a moral standpoint, I support them 100%. Starting Alex Gordon. This goes back to starting Alex Gordon in the major leagues in 2007 and not playing the service time game that, even 8-9 years later, the Cubs were doing with Chris Bryant. The guy was ready. They brought him up.
I object to that theory, that making the service time game a moral discussion. You have a collective bargain agreement that the players agreed to. And if they don't like it, then stand your ground, strike, and get a better agreement. But once you sign it, the rules are the rules. And holding guys down is just good business.
It is good business. I guess I've changed my mind on it. When I was, and as recently as 5 years ago, I was 100% on board with teams should do whatever is in their power to win. And maybe it's because the Royals won, and I've been to the mountaintop, and I can, I'm a little less obsessed with my team winning, and I'm a little bit more concerned about just what it says about the game as a whole. But there is a point for me where I'm like, you know what? Players should come to the major leagues when they're ready. But my point is that's not even the issue here, because the Royals, when the Royals have an opportunity to send somebody down because they're not performing. I mean, Brady Singer was demoted to the minor leagues because he wasn't performing. And
to Con Bio's point, he says it would have been, for people in the podcast, it would have been pretty easy to avoid service time issues with Singer by sending him down instead of keeping up throwing bullpen sessions early in the season.
But Soren, but you have to admit, if they had sent him down, he couldn't have worked with Cal Eldred.
I really do. Do you agree with me? I don't think there's any way, based upon the frustration that that Dayton Moore publicly showed about the situation that they had in Toronto, that there's no way that doesn't carry over to Cal Eldred. They have taken bullet after bullet after bullet for this guy.
I mean, God, I would hope so. Like, when we found out he wasn't making the trip, when unlike the players, there is no collective bargaining agreement with coaches. Like, teams have a lot more authority to mandate their non-playing personnel to get vaccinated, and they went out of their way to make an exception for him. I mean, it didn't surprise me, because I've just learned to assume the worst. But what has he done that is so special that he deserves special treatment like that? So yes, I think they've taken all this heat for him, and it has not only has it not paid off, but it has backfired in the worst possible way. I can't imagine how they could bring him back, but again, I can't imagine how they could start the season with him.
It's clearly your moral code thing that they know that they have drafted and developed poorly before they've handed off to him. I mean, that's the only. They're smart people, and they are also people, as we've pointed out, that I do think try to do the right thing more so than certainly. Listen, the Astros organization has proved time and time again that they are. I mean, they're certainly, they've been filled with despicable people, because they've had despicable actions that have happened numerous times. And just look it up. If you think I'm over my skis, I'm not. Go look up at some of the things that have gone on in that organization. The Royals, and I'm proud to say I'm a fan of a team that doesn't operate that way, but there's just no other rational conclusion of the timeline that's gone on with this, other than them going, listen, we haven't given you anything to work with. And at this point, Brady Singer is something to work with. Kris Bubic is something to work with. These are guys that they thought of highly, and enough. And when you're part of, having, being ready, availability is the biggest part of your ability. Okay. Mm-hmm. Whatever reason you're not available, and whether it's you're a fat ass and you didn't get in shape and ready to play the game, you don't take your bullpen serious, or you're not doing what every other player is doing, you're making that choice, and there's no way that Cal Eldred didn't absolutely contribute to that. I mean, done enough. Like, I'm with you. Like, I don't want to talk about him anymore. I'm tired of talking about him. But I mean, to me, now there is no excuse. He removed the excuse.
Well, here's what I say. I mean, yes, the Royals haven't always given him the best stuff to work with, but I still think the performance is so beyond the pale, so below even the most minimal bar you would expect for pitcher results, that he has to be culpable. But if you want to create if you put a gun to my head, one reason why the Royals should not fire him, it's not a very flattering reason for the organization, but the reason is pretty clear, which is that the failure to develop pitching in this organization does not stop at the major league level. It is right now, the rot is all the way through the minor leagues, the entire organization. And this is why when we talk about, yes, if they fire him at the end of the season, if they part ways, that will be a good thing. It will be the bare minimum. But what I want to see is the Royals making an announcement concomitant with him being let go, that they are overhauling the entire. I mean, Paul Gibson probably is, I had high hopes for Paul Gibson because he was supposed to revitalize the pitching development at the same time that Alex Zumwalt and Drew Saylor are supposed to do it on the hitting side. And to me, sort of the sort of core story of this Royals season, if you want to get away from the record and the individual performance of players, is this incredible divergence between the development of hitters top to bottom throughout the organization and the development of pitchers. Because I was thinking about this the other day. You mentioned Asa Lacy. Let's talk about Asa Lacy, because today Asa Lacy.
We're going to do Asa Lacy, or you want to talk about the first half? Because it sounds like you're going down towards.
Well, let's do this. We'll do all, but let's do Asa Lacy real quick, right? Because Asa Lacy returned to Double-A after making 3 rehab starts in the complex league and walking 10 guys in 6 innings. And the Royals, and with their incredibly high standards for all of their players, were like, you're ready to go back to Double-A, even though you can't throw strikes in the complex league. And he went out there, and we talked about it last week. He walked 5. He faced 7 batters and walked 5 of them. Right today.
By the way, I want people to be prepared for this. It's gotten worse.
Well, technically, he faced 7 batters today and only walked 4 of them. So maybe that's progress. But the point is, he walked 4 batters in an inning. He threw 34 pitches, and 12 of them were strikes. Which means, as Dayton Ward would put it, if you're going to blame him for the 22 balls he threw, you have to give him credit for the 12 strikes.
Yeah.
So great. He threw 12 strikes. He threw 22 balls and 12 strikes today. But here's the thing. He wasn't the Royals' top pitching prospect in Double-A today with the worst performance, because Asa Lacy pitched out of the bullpen today. The starter of today's game, Alec Marsh, who I would have also at the beginning of the season put as one of the 3 or 4 best pitching prospects in the system, went 2 1/3, allowed 7 hits, 7 runs, 3 walks, no strikeouts. And Alec Marsh, who has 105 strikeouts in 74 innings. I mean, he has the ability to miss bats. He now has a 7.70 ERA in Double-A this season. And this is the sort of thing that's going on up and down the organization. The story of the first half in the minor leagues is similar to the story in the major leagues in the first half. The hitters looking great, pitchers, nah. And it struck me yesterday, I think, when I started to think to myself, ask myself, who is the best pitching prospect in the system right now? Do you have an answer?
I don't. I mean, because Frank Mazzicato's walking he's walking a batter per inning. He's at least striking guys out. I will give Mazzicato that. He's got a high strikeout rate. I think I saw 49 Ks in like 34 innings, but he's got like 31 or 2 walks in those 32 innings. No, I played this game this week. Let's play Royals Northwest Arkansas natural ERAs. Forget about names. I'm just going to take them in the order of how we're going to go from most innings pitched down. And I'm just going to rattle off the ERAs. Ready? Here we go. Double-A. 647, 7.7, 3.66, 4.36, 2.13. Nice little run there. 5.18, 6.26, 5.2, 2.28, 6.42, 1.13, 11.81, 7.46, 10.08, 5.16, 6.46, 2.57, 11.85, 10.32, 14.81, 9.00, 4.7, 4.50, and 27. I mean, I don't know what
they have. A 5.74 team ERA, which is, even worse than the major league team And it's to the point where I look at these numbers and then I look at the offense where the team, the AA teams, as a team, they're split: a 263 batting, 353 on base, 433 slugging. And I look at this and I'm like, did the Naturals move into like an extreme hitters park in the offseason? And if they did Omaha too as well? Because the numbers look like a team, like they just look like what I would expect from the Rockies, a team that just plays in a bandbox, plays at really high elevation. It can't possibly be that a team has this good at hitting development and this bad at pitching development. But it's like every team in the system is the same thing.
Have I shared with you what Dayton Moore said a month or so ago about Asa Lacy? That Asa Lacy will be a
championship part.
Yeah, don't know if it'll be a starter or reliever. I ran that by Keith Law, and his reaction was like, no. Oh, I hope not. I hope that's not the case. Asa Lacy should be a starter. It'll be very disappointing if he doesn't end up starting in baseball, starting in the major leagues. I mean, Keith Law was like, oh, no, that's not good. I'm like, good. I'm glad. I like it when smart people also, it sets off alarm bells for them like it does me. But I want to stress on where it's at. And I hope Asa Lacy gets it together. But I want to be clear. 2 starts since coming back to Northwest Arkansas. And this is after, like you said, 14 walks and 8 innings, in complex league ball, which I'd never even heard of until this came about. 2 appearances, an inning and 2/3, 0 hits. 0 hits. You want to know why? Because it's like Little League baseball. You don't even need a bat. He can't throw 3 strikes before he'll throw 4 balls. 0 hits, 8 runs, 8 earned, 2 hit batters, 9 walks, and not 1 blanking strikeout.
Who was this again?
This is Asa Lacy.
My God.
Yeah, because he went 2/3, no hits, 5 runs, 5 earned, a hit batter.
Oh, you're saying walks, the combined.
No case.
Gotcha. Yes, exactly.
Yeah. And then today, an inning, no hits, 3 runs, 3 earned, a hit batter, 4 walks, no strikeout. No strikeouts.
Yeah.
Not even like effectively wild. Like, oh, he got to a 3-2 and holy cow, he got one over. Or he got a guy behind, for whatever asinine reason, somebody took the bat off their shoulder and fouled one off. So he started 0-1 and he finally got the punchy, off a 3-2, right? No, not one. I mean, that's you use the term. That's yips like stuff.
The best thing I can say about what Asa Lacy has done this season since returning to AA is that it's not even the worst case of a complete loss of command by a pitcher on the Naturals this year coming back from an injury. And I point you to the curious case of Will Klein, who I'm not sure if you're familiar with Will Klein, but came into the season as, by some measures, possibly the best relief prospect in the system. 5th round pick in 2020. I don't have his exact numbers last year, but struck out like 13 batters per 9 innings in A-ball last season. Really promising. He had some shin splints, which kept him out for the first month of the season. Not an arm issue to the best of my knowledge, just shin splints. Well, in his first 4 outings of the season, 5 innings, 8 hits, 17 walks, and 4 strikeouts, 1 home run in there as well. His splits: 381 batting, 658 on base, 619 slugging. Basically, Barry Bonds in 2004 numbers. And then started to find the strike zone. Like, he kept going, and for the next month or so, he was actually almost fought his commando draw. 15 2/3 innings, 13 walks, 25 strikeouts. Then he started to lose his command again. And coming into today, he actually had 37 walks, I believe, 35 walks in 24 2/3 innings this season. He did pitch today. He was the bright spot today because today he went out 2 innings, 1 run, 1 hit, no walks, 5 strikeouts. This is what we've come to, where Will Klein goes out there, has 1 good outing after walking 12 or 13 batters per 9 innings. And I'm looking at that. I'm like, maybe this is progress. I mean, ultimately, everybody we're mentioning is just, there are so many guys in the system just cannot throw strikes. It's just a matter of, Are they just wild like Frank Mazzucato, or
Right.
are they yip territory like Asa Lacy and Will Klein?
By the way, your Klein numbers from last year, 36 appearances. He threw 70 innings, right? All 36 in relief. 70 innings, 43 hits, 44 walks. It's pretty high walk total, but 121 strikeouts in
15 and a half strikeouts per nine. I was actually underestimating him. Yeah. But this is the thing. The 44 walks. Well, it looks like a Josh Hader line in the major leagues, which command issues. And this is the thing. He's in the wrong organization to teach him how to throw strikes. I mean, there are many things the Royals are not doing well right now. But my God, throwing strikes. I mean, this is, again, why I give Brady Singer so much credit that he's somehow overcome that. The only other guy in the system who we can say that about is Zach Greinke, who's, might as well be the pitching coach at this point because he knows more about pitching than all these other guys combined.
Agreed. And David says, is it fair to say that Paul Gibson is more to blame than Cal Eldred? I mean,
when we look at the minor league results, maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
I mean, it's certainly not promising. I mean, just to answer my own question, the best pitching prospect in the system, it might be Ben Kuderna, who apparently I just found out Columbia's game that it was rained out, but it was rained out after 4 innings. He went 4 innings, shutout innings, 2 hits, 2 walks, 2 strikeouts.
Who did this?
Ben Kuderna.
Okay.
I mean, not dominant, but with the 2 strikeouts, but 4 shutout innings that won't count. But I think the best pitching prospect might be Jonathan Bowlan, who, when you look back at that great 2018 draft, hopefully great, we'll see. They certainly
is this our
first
minor
4 guys.
Minute you're dropping on us here early.
Yeah, might as well. Yeah, let's use this as a moment just to bring him up, because that was the year. Obviously, they took Singer first and Lynch and Kowar back to back, and then Kris Bubic. Well, the 5th pick, which was I believe a senior sign, they saved money by taking Jonathan Bowlan out of the University of Memphis. Command and control, really tall guy, didn't throw that hard though, but had good command. The command has stayed. The stuff has gotten better. That's sort of that's the blueprint now, I think, for drafting pitchers nowadays, is don't draft the wild guy, the guys with great stuff, because you can't teach command as easy as you can teach velocity, apparently, which is just completely upends everything we knew about pitching development for 100 years. But that's what teams have been able to do. Great, good for them. Jonathan Bowlan is that guy where he's now a legitimate low to mid 90s guy with 4 pitches and command, and was probably the best pitching prospect in the system last year when he blew out his elbow in May and had Tommy John surgery. Quietly came back in the complex league, made, I think, 4 or 5 starts there, just returned to A-ball yesterday, I believe, and went out, I think it was 4 innings. Here, I got the numbers here.
4 innings, 6 hits.
6 hits, but no runs, 1 walk, 6 strikeouts. And I saw some highlights. It's if he is healthy, I think the most important thing right now is it looks like the stuff is back. And if the stuff is back, and the command has always been there, because he's the one guy that Royals don't need to teach command, because he already has it, because in his career, he has 40 walks and 221 career minor league innings. This is a guy who, if I had a gun to my head, I'd probably make him the number 1 pitching prospect, Kuderna number 2, and probably Noah Cameron, who was a lefty they drafted last year, who was coming back from Tommy John, number 3. But you look at the hitting side, and even if you don't count Gavin Cross and Caden Wallace, who are the top 2 picks this year's draft, Nick Prado is technically still a rookie. I guess Vinny Pasquantino is technically still a rookie. But even if they lose it, Michael Massey I would put up there. Tyler Gentry I'd put up there. Like there's a lot of hitters you can point to. I mean, when you put together the top 10 Royals prospects this year, there may be 7 or 8 hitters on that list before you get to a pitcher.
Yeah, it is scary. What are the takeaways from the first half are there for you?
Well, we've talked in the past about how the Royals as a team are walking more than they ever have before in decades, and the fact that so much of that is coming from the young guys. I mean, I want to talk a little bit about Nick Prado, because even though it's only been a few games, I think it's really he has been just sort of a good exhibit of what the Royals are doing differently and doing so well now with hitter development. I'm not a scout. I don't claim to have any magical observational abilities, but from what I have been able to watch him at the plate, it's almost disconcerting seeing a hitter come up and have this approach at the plate and see that he's wearing a Royals jersey. Because I've seen guys like this on the other 29 teams, but to see him spit on pitches in the dirt and see him fight off borderline pitches and then wait. And it was yesterday, I think, when his first at bat of the game really struck me, because it was like a 7-8 pitch battle, and then he got a high fastball, like right at the top edge of the zone, but he got above it and he drove it almost for a home run. He just not quite enough under it. His launch angle, I think, was like 24 degrees. And if it had been like 30, it would have been out of the park. It would have actually been out of most parks, but hit it up for a double off the wall. But like, he was hunting for that pitch. That's a pitch that for decades, the Royals, either that was the one pitch they wouldn't swing at, or that's the sort of pitch they would slap at the opposite field. And when you see Prado and Pasquantino and Michael Massey and MJ Melendez looking for that high pitch and looking to drive it, looking to get under it and hit it for power to the pull field, it is completely un-Royal-like and extremely exciting as a Royals fan, because this is a landmark event for this organization. It makes me feel like the hype of the hitting development is legit, and that even as bad as the pitching is, this team will at least be fun to watch over the next 2 to 3 months. I mean, I got a text from a friend who is not a Royals fan the other day saying, you know what, these Royals are actually, and he was referring probably to, I'm assuming, to the hitters, but he's like, these Royals are surprisingly fun to watch. And that I think is a compliment to the fact that they are approaching their at-bats in a way that they have not done before.
Let's see what he had. I'm trying to figure this out because we had the question. I'll put it up here in a second. 32% swing and miss rate. Ryan was asking the question on Prado. Will we, or will the Royals be good with a greater than 30% strikeout rate? If it comes with a 374 on base, yes, because he has 51 walks. So yeah, you can live with that. I mean, if he's as good as, and I haven't seen enough of him to know, generally speaking, I think you can, knock off 20% of whatever you think a guy is defensively based upon the Royals advertising of him, because they have oversold everybody, in my opinion, so far. But if he would actually be as good as he was with the, as he's been advertised with the glove at first base, and he's going to draw, 85, 90, 100 walks. Yes, you can live with that. He because he's also driving the ball when he does make contact, he's hitting the ball over the wall. I almost wonder, is the question not about like when the new ballpark is made, or even right now before it, move the fences in.
No, exactly. That's exactly what I've been thinking about. Is it time? Because how many times have somebody just smoked a ball this year that it was like there's that Twitter feed, which every ball that's would have been a home run in some ballpark. It's an automatic feed that lists the number of ballparks it would have been a home run at. And it's astounding how many times the Royals batter will hit a ball. Would have been a home run in 29 out of 30 parks, but he hit it at Kauffman Stadium. And, and that's fine if your team's identity is to hit the ball on the ground, run like hell. Like, it worked when Willie Wilson was your center fielder. I think then Royal Stadium was a huge asset because other teams couldn't hit the ball out of the park, and you could hit a ball on the turf and get an inside the park home run. But that's not the way the Royals are constructed anymore. There's actually a shocking amount of power hitters in this lineup. It's basically Nicky Lopez and everybody else is swinging for the fences.
Yeah.
It may be time to do that. But the thing with watching Nick Prado, what really struck me was the comparison I had in mind with him when he was drafted. The way he was described as this high school first baseman, he was not considered a power hitter. He was described as a great pure hitter with power. That was the idea, that he would hit home runs just because he would hit the ball hard. He had a smooth swing, great defenses, all the things that was describing him. And I just remember, I was like, if you just took that paragraph, the scouting paragraph to describe the Royals' first round pick, Nick Prado, and dropped it into Eric Hosmer's scouting report from 2008 when the Royals drafted him, they looked identical. And I've always thought of
Hosmer was supposed to have raw power, though.
Probably even more so. Like Nick Prado, which is why he was the third pick in the draft, and Prado was like the 14th pick. But Nick Prado was almost like, a slightly lesser version of Eric Hosmer. And that was one of the reasons I was not a huge fan of the pick, because I'm like, you take a high school first baseman, you have to be right about the bat. If he's playing first base, you cannot be wrong on and trying to project a high school hitter's, ability is very difficult. And then when Prado went out and was very unremarkable in his first full year and then completely cratered his second year, yeah, I felt like vindicated that my skepticism was justified. This is a guy who's not going to hit enough to be a major league player. Then comes, the great, remaking of all the Royals minor leaguers during the pandemic, changes swing. He comes back out. Here's the thing about Eric Hosmer. Eric Hosmer was a rookie in 2011. There was another first baseman who was a rookie that year. They're born 6 weeks apart. They had very, very similar rookie seasons. Eric Hosmer, as a rookie, hit 293, 334 on base, 465 slugging. This other guy had a 282 batting average, 346 on base, 448 slugging. Hosmer had a 118 OPS plus. This guy had a 116 OPS plus. Very similar. They were both considered top prospects before the 2011 season, but almost universally, every prospect expert, Baseball America, MLB, I believe even Keith Law, I don't have his number, his list in front of me. I'm pretty sure almost all of them had Hosmer better. I mean, Hosmer was a top 10, top 15 prospect in the land. This guy was not. And the reason was everyone was like, Hosmer has more power potential. He's going to be an elite power hitter. Well, Hosmer never turned into that guy because Hosmer never learned to hit the ball in the air. And I actually had this conversation because if you remember back then, Kevin Seitzer was the Royals hitting coach. And I would argue that Kevin Seitzer lost his job after the 2012 season in large part because Eric Hosmer had a very disappointing rookie sophomore season at 232. I would argue that I have never seen any Royals hitter hit into tough luck for a longer period of time than Eric Hosmer in the first half of 2012. You go back and look at his number. His batting average on balls in play was like under 200 for like into June. He was just scalding line drives that were caught all over the field. And I actually Kevin Seitzer actually told me a couple of years later, after he'd been let go, before he went on to become hitting coach for the Blue Jays and then the Braves, and now has a World Series ring, and I'm extremely happy for it because I think the world of him as a hitting coach as well as a Royals player back in the day. But he told me flat out, he's like during that season, he's like, I lost Eric in the sense that Eric got so tired of the results, right? It's very hard. And I think it was a lot harder in 2012 to convince a player that was hitting line drives all over the field, but looking at a 170 average on the scoreboard, a lot harder to convince them back then that they were to keep doing what they're doing, that the results are less important than the process.
We still haven't heard who this other guy is.
Well, who do you want to venture who the other guy is?
He was a first baseman.
Mm-hmm.
In what year?
2011 was his rookie season.
Is that? I mean, I think Joey Votto was before that. Wasn't he?
Not Joey Votto. It was Freddie Freeman.
Okay.
Freddie Freeman, who is 2/3 of the way through a Hall of Fame career now, and mind you, took a big step forward the year that Kevin Seitzer became the hitting coach in Atlanta. You want to talk about? So to me, it's one of the worst decisions the Royals ever made was letting him go. And you look at that, but the Royals are doing. They may not be doing the Kevin Seitzer thing now, but when I watch Nick Prado and what he has done in the minor leagues and what he's doing at the plate, I'm seeing a guy who I used to think of as, this guy's trying to be Eric Hosmer, and now he's trying to be Freddie Freeman. And I think, if there's one thing that gives me a lot of hope about the first half of the season, it's that the Royals are embracing this approach towards hitting. Don't swing at the bad pitches, but when you get a good pitch, don't just swing at it. Swing at it with the intention to do damage. Hit it in the air and hit it hard.
Yeah,
and I think it's going to work for them.
From the chat room, Catman said Prado looks legit overall. His D in Toronto was great. Also wanted to go on the record as saying he'll be better than Hosmer long term. Calling it. Frankly, as much as I like Eric Hosmer, that's actually not that hard to be at first base right now. This one I like. Christopher said Prado is fantastic defensive first baseman. Saw it at Northwest Arkansas myself last year. And then Mike McFarland was on our morning show, The Border Patrol, made the comparison to Wally Joyner. And that's what I had always kind of heard. I said, well, I mean, worst case scenario, you end up with Doug Minkiewicz because I remember talking to people. I said, well, how good is he defensively? Because they loved how good Hosmer was. And I think Hosmer was really good. And continues to be really good. Although people in San Diego tell me he's not that good anymore.
The weird thing is Hosmer's defensive metrics have never been good. And
I know, but
first
the eye
base is
test,
hard to measure. I know. I'm just saying it's another one of the reasons when you look at like why his WAR is much lower than you would think. That is one of the reasons. Like he's been an exasperating player throughout his career.
I know everybody gets excited about range and all that, but range at first and third to me, I still, maybe a mathematician can sit me down and show me and quantify where it is, but I think it's minimal. Like so much of that is just a reaction. Do you react and catch the things hit around you? And then over at first base, do you give confidence to the guys in the infield to just send it over no matter what? And Eric Hosmer gave you the confidence to send. Alcides Escobar made some great plays because he knew Hosmer would come off the bag. God bless Mike Sweeney. I love him to death. But Jesus, he knew. I don't know why I said it fits, right? Yeah, there you go. It fits with Mike. He never knew when to come off the bag. And that's such an underrated trait of a first baseman, like I'm gonna keep my foot here and stretch, so hopefully we make it. No, you have to know how far you can stretch, and you've got to come off the bag and give the confidence to your guys to make those great plays. And when they come up a little short, or if you have to dig it in the dirt, you have to go do it. And that's what Hosmer did, and it looks like Prado will be able to do all those things and have more.
And it helps, and it does help that like Hosmer, he is left-handed throwing.
Yes,
I think that might be both because it makes it easier to throw to the other bases. Although
yes.
I think it was yesterday actually he threw down to second base to try and to get a runner and over through the second baseman. Kyle Lisbaugh had to come in to stop it from being an error. That's part of it. Also, though, I think the fact that you catch the ball with your right hand gives you a little bit more ability to use your footwork to snag throws that maybe errant without getting in the way necessarily of the oncoming runner. So there are some advantages there, and I do think Nick Prado will be a good first baseman. Like I said, Hosmer's numbers have never fit, but that's one of the reasons why I take that seriously. Is you look at like truly elite defensive first baseman, like legendary. The numbers back them up, even though like the numbers are very primitive. I just looked up Keith Hernandez. Right, it was almost like the goals. Keith Hernandez here. I'm looking at his defensive numbers are kind of insanely good for a first baseman. He was double digits above a plus 13, plus 11 for first base. You wouldn't think a first base could even have that much of an impact. He was 117 runs above average for his career. Like the numbers absolutely say Keith Hernandez was a freaking stud at first base. Eric Hosmer is 19 runs below average for his career. I'm not saying he's a below average first baseman, but the evidence that he's a truly elite and saves tons of runs over there, it's just not there. But also, it's like if you didn't keep offensive numbers and you just watched Eric Hosmer at the plate, you would think the guy's an MVP candidate. He looks gorgeous at the plate. The numbers say otherwise, and it's just one of those things. I have nothing but fond memories of his Royals career. He was there for the Royals when they needed him. Even his playoff numbers, he had very pedestrian numbers overall in the postseason, but had 29 RBIs in 31 games because he always came through with runners in scoring position. What a weird career he's had.
Yeah, I really thought that I get not messing with what ain't broke when you're about ready to get a payday, and everyone was of the consensus that he had done enough that everyone's like, it's just around the corner. It's just around the corner. And I thought when he signed the contract, we would see him take the offseason and rework a swing and come back and strike out more but lift the ball. Yep. And I thought it was happening this year. I'm like, oh my God, he's actually doing it because he jumped out with like 5 home runs.
Right.
And now
he looked like elite, and it just hasn't come together. I mean, he had his best season of his career, right, the year before free agency. And but after his first 2 years in San Diego were so disappointing, I thought, okay, he's got the long-term contract. He has to, he has the stability to make a big change, and it's never come through for him.
All right. One thing I'll say about Prado is I've had some people kind of say from in the organization, they are convinced about Pasquantino being a hitter. There's still skepticism on Prado, to which the only thing I will say about that is I'm nervous that their skepticism is because they don't like strikeouts and they can't live with the strikeouts, and that this is still an archaic mindset of if he's going to get on base, stop worrying about the strikeouts and let the guy come up, be a whiz defensively. I just still don't think they put the value in the on base percentage.
Right. I will defend them
in a past era.
I will defend them to the extent that when it comes to Nick Prado, I'm a little bit worried about his strikeouts because his
I am
strikeout
too.
rate, his strikeout rate in the minor leagues this year was 30.6%. You can survive in the major leagues at 30.6 if you hit for elite power. The problem is 30.6 in AAA. That's 35 to 40 in the majors. That is my worry. That if there is a weakness in Nick Prado, it's if he gets eaten alive by major league hitters and doesn't make enough contact. And even that's why even though it's only been 26 plate appearances now in the major leagues, I'm keeping a very close eye on his strikeout rate. He's started out 7 times in 26 plate appearances. That's actually like a 26% strikeout rate, lower than his. If he, let's put it this way, if he strikes out in 26% of his major league plate appearances, I think he'll be fine. Okay. But Pasquantino is not at Eric Hosmer 2012 levels, but that dude is hitting into some terrible luck. And I think Alec Lewis made this point in his recent column where it's like the goals for the Royals for the second half. And one of them was like, don't touch anything with Pasquantino. He's fine. Yeah. He's like, I know his numbers aren't great, but his average exit velocity is like elite. And he's making contact. I mean, his strikeout rate's like 15, 18%, somewhere in that range, which for a power hitting first baseman, you'll take that any day. So I agree that like I'm more confident about Pasquantino than Prado, but I actually have confidence in both.
All right, real quick, the Royals draft. Final thoughts on what they were able to accomplish.
So they announced today that the signings of a lot of almost their entire draft. The only guys who are not currently signed is their second round pick, Caden Wallace, and I believe their 12th rounder, their 15th rounder, and then the last 2 picks in the draft, which were both high school guys. They didn't take a high school player until they got to the 18th round. They signed the 18th rounder, who was not considered a top 200 guy in the draft. But the last 2 guys, especially the 20th round pick, Austin Charles, was a guy by Baseball America was like the 4th best, highest ranked guy in their entire draft. And so to me,
and they got him signed, you're saying?
Well, no, they haven't. He's one of the 2 they haven't signed. So but they actually they issued a second tweet emphasizing they have not finished trying to sign all their picks. Like their second, I think the big thing now, I think Caden Wallace, the second rounder, is probably going to get above slot money. Gavin Cross got exactly slot, which remember teams have slot plus 5% before they get dinged. So if you sign a guy for slot, that actually frees up the extra 5% to sign elsewhere, to spend elsewhere. I think Caden Wallace is going to get more, and I think that you have to sign the other guys first to free up the money in order to sign. But if they sign their 19th and 20th round players, the 2 high school guys with high upside, I will consider this a rather successful draft. If they don't, their 3rd round pick, Mason Barnett, was not considered a top 6-7 round guy by most of the draft experts out there. They took a lot of college pitchers after the first 2 rounds that, these are guys, they're interesting, but they're guys who need a lot of work. There's something, either they need to move to the bullpen because they don't have.
And in this organization, the way it stands right now, without changes, there is no hope.
Right. The only hope is that these guys in 4 months are going to have a completely new set of people to work with. But from a pure talent standpoint, they went chalk with the first pick. The Caden Wallace, maybe they got him to fall a little bit because they're going to give him above slot money. They probably got a good deal there. But the rest of the draft is underwhelming. But if they get those high school players signed and they get their 12th rounder, Jack Pineda, signed, there are some guys here I like. And I look back at last year's draft where it really didn't come together until they were able to sign the last player they signed was their 17th round pick.
Catcher from NC State.
Right, Luca Tresh, who was, I think, ranked 102nd in the draft by Baseball America. Like, again, he was after Mazzucato and Kudna and maybe Peyton Wilson and maybe even Shane Panziti. Luca Tresh was considered right there with those guys, after those guys in terms of draft quality. I didn't think they had enough money freed up to sign him. They were able to get it done. And frankly, right now, he might be a top 10 prospect in the organization. He's got like a 780, 790 OPS in high A ball in his first full pro season. I've got it here.
271, 353, 444 for a 797 OPS, 10 home runs, 14 doubles.
He might be the best catching prospect. They've got a lot of catchers in the system who might be backups. He's the one guy who might have starting potential. So if they sign the 19th and 20th round picks, I think, the combination of the high upside hitters with Cross and Wallace, and then these these flyers, these high school guys, extremely talented. Austin Charles is actually they announced him in the draft as I believe a shortstop / right-handed pitcher. Like the Royals are willing to let him play both ways. One of the things coming out of high school is he did not. I think teams wanted him to pitch or wanted him to hit, and he wants to pitch. One or the other. And the Royals seem to have indicated that they're willing to let him try both. Think about that from your knowledge of the Royals' history, how conservative they are in doing stuff like that, to let a guy hit and pitch. I just think
Brett Eibner was one of those guys as well, and they immediately stripped him of
right. They wouldn't. He finally did get a chance to pitch after he left the organization. The Dodgers let him pitch, and I believe he might have even briefly made the majors as a pitcher. I could be wrong about that, but he didn't get an opportunity to really do it in the Royals organization. So again, it's an area where the Royals maybe are willing to try something new in order to bring a high upside guy into the system. Yeah, he did. He made 3 appearances for the Marlins in 2020, Brett Eibner. So if they get those guys signed, I'll give my preliminary approval to the draft. But right now, it's okay.
All right, we're going to be back with another edition before we get to the trade deadline. So we'll be on the eve of it. And in fact, we're talking about holding off until after the deadline.
So I think we still have one. We'll have one next week. You're going to be on vacation, Bo. If we do that on the 31st,
Right.
The deadline I believe is August 2nd. So we will do another Kaufman Corner just like the day after the draft, the trade deadline, hopefully.
So that's the plan. Again, Florida willing. For me, that's the plan. So let's but what do we think as we sit here now, just over a week away of the trade deadline? What is your aspiration? I'll say this. I mean, I think the Royals have been like if to kind of tie into what we learned from the first half. The Royals have to knock off this doing everything swell for the players crap because it's not repaid by the players. And I think I've talked to a number of people that front office in other sports. Front office guys thinking the players are your buddy and they're going to do things is a recipe for disaster. And I think that's how this organization's operated. And if I have something from the first half, the takeaway is they've got to stop doing that. And they've got to start making good business decisions for the ball club. And as we sit here at the trade deadline, Danny Duffy, they did not get anything from Danny Duffy by keeping him into the rebuild. They're not getting anything from Whit Merrifield. That's going to count in any season that matters. That he has to be moved. There has to be a statement made of we're not going to be. They gave him his option already to be swell guys, and then he's out there like, well, if it's the playoffs, I might go. Like,
look, Whit Merrifield has made it clear. Like the whole controversy was that he made it clear that playing in the postseason, playing for a winner, is so important to him that he's willing to do something he otherwise does not want to do, even if it keeps him out of games. I mean, his consecutive game streak ended a couple days before he went on the restricted list. I'm going to take the Royals at their word that there was a real injury and that they didn't want.
There is a real injury, but I will tell you, had Toronto not been looming, he would have been in the lineup.
Yeah. I mean, I think you and I had to maybe discuss it off the air right before that injury happened. We speculated, is Whit Merrifield really going to let his consecutive game streak end because he didn't get a shot, right? So he's made it clear with his words and his actions that playing for a winner is really, really, really important to him. Okay, then take him at his word. You want to do right by Whit Merrifield? You know what? Trade him, because that seems to be, he wants to play for a winner. You want to, I presume, win in the future, and trading him will accelerate that. Like this, you don't have to, even if you're the Royals, even if you want to take care of your players, even if you want to do right by everyone, you can say that and still trade Whit Merrifield. He's made it clear that's what he wants. So trade him. He's, if you want to break his numbers down and cut out everything that happened before about mid-May, he's basically hit like Whit Merrifield of old for the last 8 weeks or so. Maybe you can convince a team that the combination that his bat is back, He's versatile. He's willing to do everything for a team except get a shot. And maybe he'll even be willing to do that as a condition for the trade. I think there's a market for him. You're not getting half of what you would have gotten for him in a trade 2 years ago, but you could probably get. And this is, we've talked about this before. Don't go for the guy in AAA who's close to the major leagues and might be a backup one day. Yay. You'll go out and get the 18-year-old guy in the complex league that you really wish you had been able to sign out of Latin America, and he signed with another team, and maybe you can get him now. So take some flyers, take some high upside, high risk flyers, but trade Merrifield. You're obviously going to trade Benintendi. Trade Michael A. Taylor. He's going to have a lot of value.
That's the one. He has to be moved. And if he doesn't, if he's not moved, I'll be, and I don't expect him to be moved, frankly, because that's not the kind of move that they do. If he's moved, I will be thrilled because it will show an acknowledgement of, one, they're cleaning house of the guys who weren't going to go play, that they want guys that are going to show up and play. I mean, and the goal is to build a winning baseball team, not win your political party of the year award, right? And so to do that, you have to have guys who will play. But furthermore, it'll be like, hey, yeah, we like the guy, but he has value. And it'll be an acknowledgement that we're going to trade him because we can do this again. We can find another guy who's pretty good, who can play defense, who's available. Maybe he'll be a better hitter, not quite as good defensively, kind of Melky Cabrera. Maybe it's more along that lines, but we can do this again. It will show that we're gonna get every bit of return we can. So Michael A. Taylor's going. I mean, I wouldn't even mind. I like Nicky Lopez a lot. I'm optimistic. The math says that he's never going to hit enough, but the on base is creeping up there.
His OPS is over 600. I'm so excited for him.
And he's a second half guy. He's so I'm optimistic. I think there's value there, Nicky Lopez. I'd love to see him play for the Royals, but if you got something for him, if they, with Michael Massey around the corner, and
if you get something for him, sure. But I just feel like Nicky Lopez, you're not going to get.
No, but Michael A. Taylor, teams need a center fielder,
right?
And with
the guy I want to see traded, like if I had one guy who I don't think Taylor will be, but the guy I really don't think will be traded, but I would be very happy to be proven wrong, is Scott Barlow.
Yeah,
and I like Barlow a lot. He's a great pitcher. He's been a huge part of this team for the last couple of years. His value will never be higher. This is everything I'm about to say I could have said about Whit Merrifield 3 years ago. His value will never be higher. He is likely to lose substantial amount of his value by the time you are ready to contend.
I'll give you another one.
You can get a lot for
it. If you can find anything for the Keller coaster.
Yeah, well, that's why his last start not very good. The other guys have actually since coming back from the break. I'm actually really happy that in a small sample size, Merrifield's gotten a couple, 2-hit Wits back. Michael A. Taylor hit the home run yesterday, but Keller, hopefully teams will overlook that last outing. He's going to be a free agent in 18 months, and he has value because he's a starting pitcher who always takes the ball. And there are a lot of teams who are on the bubble right now.
Usually. The innings, he doesn't always take the ball. That's an overstatement. About late in the year, he gets shut down and all those.
Yeah, I do wonder how much of that is just because the Royals weren't playing for anything. But yes, but the point is, he doesn't have to be a playoff starter. Even if he's just your fifth starter for a team trying to get into the postseason, that has a lot of value.
Yeah.
So yes, I agree. I'd like to see, but honestly, if I had a choice, I'd rather see Barlow move because I just feel like you can get a lot more from Barlow right now than you can from Brad Keller. You just can't.
Well, I just like to see a lot of activity.
Yes.
They know they need to be more transactional. Dayton Moore acknowledged that at one point, and then earlier this year seemed to be basically thumbing his nose at it that, like, yeah, I know we're not as transactional, but we believe in what we're doing. Well, I don't.
Well,
and so I like to say,
well, that makes one of us.
Yeah.
So the one I would really be shocked, but I would be very impressed. The other one, of course, is Hunter Dozier. Like if there's a market for Hunter Dozier, I'm sorry.
What market is that?
Far back, a team that needs apparently a DH or maybe can hide him at first base. Because the thing with him is he can't play any position other than first base, and the Royals have two guys that they're trying to get into that lineup at first base. Even if Dozier hits, he's just not much of an asset for this team. I mean, if you told me right now the Royals will trade, God, they could trade 6 guys off their active roster. They won't. If they trade 4, I'll be thrilled.
Yeah.
If they trade 3, I'll be probably fine with that. But I think I'm worried they're going to trade 2. I'm worried they're going to trade Benintendi and Merrifield, and that's it. and that would be a missed opportunity.
Almost 75 minutes in. It's time to say goodnight. We appreciate it, by the way, in the podcast. If you're getting here to the finish line, thank you. You can listen in multiple sessions, to work, from work, however you want. Remember, if you're catching us on the podcast, you can join us live when we record the podcast. We stream it Sunday nights at 10. Follow our Twitters at Jazayerli, Jazayerli, and at Soren Petro, SORENPETRO. To see what it is. Sometimes we have to move around. Like we said, we have a little extra shows here and there, which we're planning on doing around the trade deadline. So make sure you're following us on the Twitter as well. But appreciate everybody. You got great reviews. If you can hit that like button, the love button, the subscribe button, all that helps us, and it doesn't cost you anything. So it's exciting. We're now into the second half, and the trade deadline's coming. Got a lot to talk about here as we move into the second half of the season. So for the good doctor, Dr. Rany Jazayerli, my name is Soren Petro, saying thank you very much for joining us here on Kaufman Corner.